we're going to create a checklist, and what I'm talking about here is just what are those upper level, kind of like 30,000 foot, what are the steps that you go through to help, what are the steps that you go through to hire somebody? For me personally, I know that I want to use 4 different steps to walk people through every time we hire them. So I'm going to start with my checklist. Again, this is an upper level type of thing. It's like 30,000 foot. What are the steps that need to take place? And I know for me, in our company, the first thing that we're going to do is I want to do a group interview. Okay? It's the first thing that we're going to do. When I'm thinking, I want to start with a group interview. And then number 2, from the group interview, I know that I want to do a shadowing experience. I want them to come in and do a shadowing. We're going to be talking a little bit more about this hiring process later. And then the third step that I'm going to do here after the shadowing is I want to make sure that there is time for a personal interview. And then finally, I'm going to follow up with their background and reference checks. Background and reference checks. Okay? So these are like a checklist. When I'm hiring a new person, I want to have these check boxes. Did the person go through this? Did they go through this? Did they go through this? Did they go through this? It's just again, 30,000 foot level. What is the checklist? What are the big steps that I want people to do to get this specific task of hiring completed? Again, this can be this could go all the way down to cleaning the bathroom. Start with a checklist. Okay, the main things that you want to have covered. It could be how to make coffee. It could be something very mundane like that. It can go all the way up to how are we going to run our annual meeting? How are we going to run our annual conference? How are we going to design our annual strategy? It can go all the way to that level, okay? From cleaning the bathroom all the way to designing annual strategies. We start with creating a checklist of the main pieces that need to be involved. Next of all, once we have created that checklist, now we can begin diving into each step and actually talking about or identifying how do you, as the leader, as this person up here, how do you want it done? If you were going to do it, how would you do it? We've got to get it out of your head, write it out step by step, checkbox by checkbox, to make sure that other people can follow the process that you would follow when you are doing a group interview. So, as we get here, step number 3 here is simply turn the checklist into a process. Turn checklist into a process. A step-by-step process, taking people through the way you think, how you make decisions, how you would approach different things, so that you can hand it off to someone else. So as we are looking at this example, if we are talking about our hiring people, and we are starting here with the group interview. All right, so I'm going to dive into this personally. I want to walk you through what goes on inside of my head, and I'm not going to have space to write it all down, but this is how it works. So it starts with my group interview. So when I'm thinking about the group interview, I'm going to start typing and start writing some things down here. And what I'm going to do is, it's actually going to start with how am I going to get people to come to my group interview? All right, how's that going to happen? So I have to start this whole process with how am I going to post an ad for this job? So for me personally, what I'm doing now is I am writing out not only the ad and what I want it to look like, typing this thing out, but I'm also typing out the system of how I'm going to post that ad on Indeed or on Craigslist or Monster.com, or if I'm using some type of a temp agency or a staffing agency, or if I'm going to just put it out on Facebook. I need to write down the steps of how I'm going to post the ad so people can respond. And then when people respond, how am I going to respond back to them so that they know to come to the group interview? So once again, I want to type out and script what I want this phone call to sound like, when they call the people to set them up on the group interview? Or what do I want the email to look like that we're going to send out? But I actually take the time to write. If I were to write an email to these people that have responded for the job, this is what I would say. And I type it out, all right? Or if I'm going to make a phone call, this is what I would say. Hello, this is Clay. I'm calling from the Leadership Initiative. Hey, it looks like you have some interest in coming to our interview coming up next week. Fantastic, man. We're looking forward to having you. Just a quick thing about our company. Bam, bada boom, bada bing. Okay? And want to make sure we know that next Wednesday at 5:30 is when that interview is going to be. Is it going to be fine for you? Is it going to work? Fantastic. Hey, I want to shoot you a short email just with instructions on how to get here, directions. There's going to be 3 things. I just tell them this, I script it out so that I can pass it off to somebody else. As opposed to, hey, go get some people for a group interview. I promise you, if I just said, go get some people for a group interview, the person that I turned that task over to would not do it the way that I wanted them to do it. And what would end up happening is I would look at it and I'd go, man, that is not right. Here, just get out of the way. Let me do it. If you want it done right, you got to do it yourself, okay? Because I didn't systemize it. I didn't write it down in a step-by-step process. Does that make sense? So now I've got people coming to the group interview. Now, when people start showing up, as a leader in this position, what do I want that to look like? When people actually come in the front door of our building, what do I want to happen? So I need to write out, here's how we're going to welcome. I want to have a person here. I want to have a person here. I want to have a person here. As people come in the door, here's what it's going to look like. Here's what I want to say. I'm going to script that out. Once people come into the interview and the interview gets started, here is the script of how to say welcome. It's good to have everybody here. Yes, I'm going to write out the script, okay? That's what's going to happen. It's going to be the welcome. As they arrive, then as the meeting starts, script out the entire thing. And then what we did after that is we actually recorded a couple of the group interviews that I was doing. So what happens is when people are coming in, we start the interview. I'm saying, hey, welcome. It's good to have you. And I was talking to everybody, and we're doing this, and we're doing that, and we're taking them through these things that I had on my list. Bada bing, bada boom. We recorded that. And then what we did was we simply transcribed that recording. And now I have a script for how I want the group interview to go. The step-by-step script of how I want it to go. Right now we have a script, all right, that is 7 pages long for how to lead a group interview. And it's scripted out. Here's what you say. Here are the steps that you go through in a group interview, all right? Now it's like the main steps of a group interview. And then here's how you script it. Here's what I actually want you to say. So what I've done is I've taken words from my mouth and I've scripted them so now I can delegate that to somebody else. Now I know that I don't have to show up for group interviews anymore. It's great because I've scripted it out for somebody else and I know that they are doing it. What was the verification on that? Verification, I recorded them. Yeah, it was great. I recorded them. I've got the script right here. I'm listening to the recording right here and I'm going, yep, you said what I wanted to, you said what I wanted to, said what I wanted to. And we did have to make a couple changes because they were missing a couple things, so I had to come back in and make sure that they were following the system. Okay? You have to hold them accountable to that. Does that make sense? So then, after the group interview, now it's time for them to come to the shadow. How are we going to determine if someone moves from the group interview to the second level of the shadowing? I've written it down. Here's how we make the choice. Here's how we determine if we want somebody to move from the group interview to the shadowing. Here's what I'm looking for. I write those things down so I can delegate it. I want you to look for what I am looking for. We have to reproduce ourselves on this. So we write down, this is what we're looking for in the shadow. And then when people come in for the shadowing experience, if I as the leader up here, okay, the senior manager, if I was to organize and run that shadowing experience, here's what I would do. Step 1, step 2, step 3. I want them to come in. Here's what we're going to do to say hello to them. Here's the schedule that I want them to go through. Here's what I want them to experience while they're doing the shadowing. I have to write all of that down. Once I've written that down, now I can delegate to my assistant, Sean, and say, Sean, you did a great job with the group interview. Now I actually want you to be in charge of the shadowing experience. Here you go. And hand him the system. I'm not just delegating a task, I'm delegating a system. And from the shadowing, now, how do I determine if someone is qualified from the shadowing to move to the personal interview? I have to write those things down. There's this little evaluation tool that I have, this little grading system that I have. And I have to show Sean what the grading system is. So now Sean is not just doing the group interview, but he's also in charge of the shadowing experience. Huh? I don't have to do that anymore. It's so nice. And then the personal interview. So now again, all right, what do I want the personal interview to look like? What are the questions that I want to make sure we ask? I don't want to just say, here, Sean, go interview the person. He's 25. He probably doesn't have any idea how to interview someone. But if I just script it out, I have 5 questions for each level. Okay, it's all scripted out. Here's what I want you to ask, and here's how I want you to write down what they say. And here's how we evaluate what they say. I have it all scripted, and I have it set out step by step into a system. So now I can delegate. So now Sean is able to do the personal interview because he has my mind. He knows what I'm looking for because I have taken the time to write out the system, so that he can follow that system. And then finally, once they have made it through the personal interview, it's the background and reference checks. So when you call references, do you have a written script when you call references? Do you have a certain thing that you're looking for when you call references? How do you know if it's a good reference or a bad reference? Well, I just kind of know. I just get a feel. Okay, you can't reproduce feelings, all right? You can't reproduce feelings. You have to write down how you get to that feeling. What are you looking for? What is it that's giving you that feeling? So we have an actual script written for when you call references, here's what you ask. Here are the questions that you ask the people that are doing the reference. Specific questions. How do I know that they did it? Because they write down the answers. And I get a piece of paper on my desk saying, here are the questions that we ask, and here's how they answered it. Verified. Bam. So I know that they did it. Does this make sense? So now what's going on, because I have created the process that covers each step in the checklist, now I'm able to delegate this entire thing of hiring new employees, and I don't have to do it anymore. But I can still be confident that we are bringing in the right type of people because I have taken the time to write out how I would do it. And I am the CEO of the company. So I want it done the way that I want it done. If Sean comes up and says, Clay, I know you said that, but I thought it'd be fun to do this. I was kind of wanting to do this, so I thought I would do that, and then I did this. It's like, no. You do it the way I tell you to do it, or I remove you from that responsibility, okay? So you need to make sure that once you have identified it, and you have the verification system, and you've put the system together, now what we have to do is hold people accountable. Oh, that can be a tough one. Holding people accountable to actually run the system. Again, I've got several clients that they have systems in place, but they don't follow them. And there's no carrot or stick when people don't follow them. There's no consequence. It's just, we have the system, people just don't do it. And I just don't have time to run around and check everybody. It's like, man, we don't have a verification system put in place that makes it easy for you to do that. So once again, we turn the checklist. This is number 3, and then we move to number 4 here. Once we have turned the checklist into a process, now we want to create training documents or videos. Documents or videos. Okay? Again, because I wrote everything down, bam, there's my training documents. Okay? We actually did a video of a personal interview that we did with one of our new employees. So now I have not only the step-by-step training documents that I can put into somebody's hands, but I also have a video that shows them what that should look like. When I am doing it, here's what it looks like. So when you do it, I want it to look like I do it. All right? And I'm going to show them the video. I'm going to walk through the documents with them to make sure that they understand the steps that I go through. After I had written all of this down and we had done the video, then I had Sean walk through these steps while I was there with him, watching him do it the way that I had told him to do it. He did well, he did well, he did well. Okay, 3 times you did it pretty good. It's probably time for me to now turn that over to you, which I've done now. So now Sean is doing the hiring in our company, and I don't have to get involved with it. All I have to do is say, Sean, we need a new person. Sean, we need a new person. Make it happen. On it. Because I've delegated that system, not just delegated the task to Sean. And then finally, number 5, once I have created the training videos and the training documents, is I need to schedule ongoing training. I need to actually schedule the training. Yes, when am I going to train people in this system that I've put together? Man, do you get this? It's just one of those things of, Clay, I don't have time to write systems. Clay, I wrote the system, but I don't have time to train people. Clay, there's too much work going on. We don't have time to do all of that. It's like you're just sitting around and you don't have it. Oh, gosh. If you're not careful, you'll just get trapped in this time warp where you never have time to do anything. So you have to block out time. Once again, welcome to success. The price for success is organization. And if you're not willing to organize, then your success, again, it doesn't make you bad, doesn't make you wrong. It just means you are going to limit your own success, and therefore you're going to limit the success of your company. It doesn't mean that you can't be successful. It just means you're going to limit your success. So these are our 5 steps that we put together to design a system. Once again, we're going to identify the task. Next of all, create a 30,000-foot checklist of the main things that you want to cover to complete that task. And then we're going to dive into each of those different steps on your checklist and actually write the process of how to do that step. What the specific things that you're looking for. And then finally, we're going to create training documents or training video to help people learn the steps, and then finally schedule consistent training times, weekly or monthly training times, where you are going to be consistently and recurringly, is that a word? Okay, where you are going to consistently train people in this task. Again, this is something that Sean and I take a look at probably now on a monthly basis, is taking a look at how he is doing with his hiring of people, kind of looking at his process. However, Sean also does a lot of sales. He does sales every single day. About each week, he's doing 600 phone calls for our company in sales. Every single week, we listen to his phone calls. And I've got the script, and I listen to him on the phone to make sure that he is following the system. Okay? How does he know what to say? Because I have identified the task. I wanted to make phone calls. These are the things I want to cover in the phone call. And this is the script. This is what you're actually going to say. And then we did training. We've got phone calls of what a good phone call sounds like and what a bad phone call sounds like. We have all of this in training. It's like, Clay, it seems like so much. It's like, well, once again, the price of success is organization. And if you don't take the time to organize and put together these systems, then what will happen by default? You can't get around it. If you don't have a system, then it will fall back to you. If you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. Okay? Or if you want it done right, you design a system. So these are the 5 steps to help you in your position as a manager or in your position as a CEO in the company to help you begin to design systems. Again, there's going to be hundreds of systems that you have. Don't get overwhelmed. Start with one. In our next session, we're going to talk about, okay, Clay, which one do you start with? How do we know which one to do? How do we begin to implement that? We're going to talk about that in the next session when we talk about how to make everything in your company perfect. How to answer everything, how to solve every problem in your company. We're going to talk about that in our next session, here in session number 7. I hope you've enjoyed this. Hope this has been helpful for you. I hope that it's setting you free. Again, we do have several different training documents and deliverables on our website at claystairs.com. Go take a look at the deliverable page in our management section, and you'll find all kinds of things that can help you here. All right? Hope you've enjoyed this. See you in session number 7.